total stress, the effective stress loses. This one aspect which we call as liquefaction. If we visited the liquefaction phenomena, we were wondering why the Bhuj is having, because the natural itself is having a white run. So it comes outside. That's we have to appreciate it. So in the case of soil, the soil is having a strength, but it loses because the water pressure goes up. The soil loses its effective strength, so it's going to create a disaster. That's we have to see it. Because especially you can see this landslides occur only during the rainy season, predominantly during the rainy season, During the rainy season, only the landslide is going to occur. Because that is a way which we have to remember and how it is happening. So the government of India, no. I have to go to next slide. Okay. Early warning system. The government of India created an early warning system, very nicely, Lewis, which was installed in the 3 major locations. Okay. So that is it. So as I told you, we discussed the 4 items: hazard, risk, vulnerability, and disaster. We discussed in detail. So we also covered what exactly you mean by hazard, what exactly you mean by risk, what exactly vulnerability. Because landslide is something, as I told you, the disasters are grouped into 3 major categories: natural disaster, biological disaster, and man-made disaster. So the natural disaster, what we have observed is uh, natural disasters, what we have observed is landslide is a natural disaster, but it is also induced because of man-made. Because if you cut the slope inappropriately, if you load the top of the slope with more weight, which all will create a trouble and imbalance in the system. So generally, when we study about the different disasters, we try to dissect the features of the disaster characteristics. So the landslide, what exactly means? Any downward sliding of a huge quantity of land mass along the steep slope. Because huge mass, we are going to come down. In a mountain, maybe in a sudden manner or in a slow manner. There are various ways to now mitigate gabion wall. So all those walls, they have been made it, and they kept V poles. If you go to Kodaikanal, Ooty, or any Sirumala, if you see on the ways when they strengthen the slopes or sides with a stone welling, they keep V poles. The reason is the water pressure which is there, which has to come out, because when the water pressure builds up, you assuming it is impermeable, relatively impermeable. Naturally, it is not 100% impermeable. It's relatively impermeable. So when you assume the soil grains particles bit loses by itself, and it creates a trouble. That's why we have to remember. And for that, the geosynthetic materials are being used, which KK said. So hazard is a potential threat that can cause harm. The risk is probability of harm due to exposure of risk. இது முன்னாடி வந்துட்டு மாறிடுச்சு. Okay. Weakness or susceptibility of a property or system to hazard. Because vulnerability, how vulnerable you are there. But if you are if you are bit wet by the rain, everyone is not going to get a fever, or everyone is not going to affect by cold. Whose immunity system is not powerful, they are going to get affected. So hazard is that I am holding a knife, it is good. But how vulnerable I am there? Suppose if I am wearing a shoe, even if it falls, it might, the damage or risk which is I'm going to occur, it's going to be relatively less. If I'm barefoot, it's going to be more. That's the reason the government is telling wear helmet, wear safety shoes, safety goggles when you work in the industry. The reason is you're making your vulnerability less. You're already vulnerable, but we because of the protective items, you are making yourself less vulnerable. The disasters actually event when disaster hazard occurs cause significant damage or loss or destruction. That is, there are different types of landfills. Each landfill, our government of our India is so blessed to all each landfill Each one we have a case study also. We have a case study, complete case studies and how it has happened. Rotational landslides, translational landslides, block slide, rock falls, topple, debris flow, debris avalanche, earth flows, creep, all. Because each varieties, whatever we have seen, earth flow, debris, and complex. So everything we have, because in a fall, because generally in a falls, what happened? Abruptly the geological material will move, such as rock or boulder, rock fall ஆகிற இடத்துல, topple ஆகிற இடத்துல. Basically, because of the fracture joints which are there, or the bedding planes, the movement along the free fall that happens. Because topple need to be distinguished from the forward rotation. அப்படியே இது பண்றது unit which is have a, because of the gravity. Basically, for toppling, gravity plays an important role. Slide, as you all know, the term landslides, because the resistive movement, when the top it comes, the resistive forces is not that much, so it might tend to slide. That's the reason we keep some reinforcement for when it comes to this thing. So lateral spread with a gentle slope, because usually occurs on a very gentle slope on a flat terrain. That's the way we have to differentiate between the landslide and lateral spreads or earth flows, all those things. So, but in a flow, we basically could define the flow into five major categories. Five major categories, general, but one is we call them as a debris flow. Debris flow, where the debris will go, because debris flow means generally what has happened in that Wayanad. It's more than 50% of the fines it will be there. So sometimes we call debris avalanche. That is also flow type only. Earth flow, mud flow, and creep. All these five major categories, we call them into a category of a flow. But I told you flow, these will occur relatively on the this thing. So you have to remember. So flow, five major flow, that is debris flow, debris avalanche, earth flow, creep, and that is mud flow. So all these things all becomes this thing which you have to remember, sir. So generally, as I told you, why it has happened. So normal slope, theta and horizontal distance. When it's steep slope, 60%, mountainous slope, 25%, rolling plane, 10 to 25%, and plain slope up to 10%. Anything which is more than 30%, it becomes vulnerable. It becomes vulnerable. It becomes vulnerable. When a slope becomes greater than 30%, they become vulnerable, generally prone to landfill, owing to other triggering factors. But what are the triggering factors which you should remember? Because generally we should know the dissection of the biological this thing of the landslide. So, if you have a mountainous region, you have to remember some crown will be there. Main scarp, original ground surface, we see when the top of the landslide, after it goes inside, we call it as a head, where the cracks appears, where the displaced material, where the surface of rupture has taken place, and we call it as a zone of a depletion. And the toe of the landfill, head and toe matters a lot. Head will come down, the foot and the toe. So these are the some dissection which we will keep it when we are trying to mark the site investigation. Mark the site investigation, and that's why we will know. So this is a landslide as a donation map of India, which was developed by Professor R.K. Bhandari, Professor Ganapathy, G.P. Ganapathy, one of the very big renowned person who worked in earthquakes and landslides from VAT. Now he is with VAT. He is a director there, I think, for disaster management. So, and myself, if you see the building material, Technology Material Promotion Council, they released the book Landslide Hazard Donation of India. If you see what my name also will be there, we are all one of the contributors we did for that landslide hazard donation map of India. So hazard donation is really a major aspect which you should remember. And the government of India has released a hazard donation map where here they are all highly prone to this thing. How to zoom it up? Okay, this area okay. These are all highly prone area which you should remember, and here they go in the area where which is always hinted very high, extreme high, and these are all high region, and yellow is a very likely region, severe to likely high, and very high to very big disaster. So the government of India has made the clear-cut identification accordingly. Because we have earthquake hazard zonation map of India, landslide hazard zonation map of India, and we also have this all the cyclone, wind for everything, building material technology. It comes under UPA, Building Material and Technology Promotion Council, BMTPC, Building Material Technology Promotion Council. They developed the maps. So what are the mitigation strategies? Because generally when we talk about landslide hazard, so we should know which area, because I would have put it in my slide, Manipur and all those places, how they are affected by the landslides we have to see. And each state, the government has to prepare. For example, Karnataka, because we are studying some areas work with Karnataka. So more than 20% of the areas in Karnataka, 15 to 20% are vulnerable to landslide, and maybe in 29 taluks it is existing. For example, Uttara Kannada, all Bangalore side, Asan side, Kodugu, Shivamogga, Chikmagalur, Udupi area, Mangalore area, Dakshina Kannada, Asan, all are prone to this thing, because the landslide not only affects that, it affects the social and economy disruption. Because the main problem is hazard when it happens in another area, which is not going to become a disaster. For example, a place where there's no man, no one is there, no inhabitant, even if anything occurs, it's not going to affect the human being. So that way. But if it is there, the social and economic disruption is going to be a major factor which we have to remember. So, but then we have to study about what are the aspects which we need to take into consideration. So the landslides, the areas which are prone to landfill. Tamil Nadu government also made a wonderful this thing in mapping. What are the areas which are prone? Generally, what is the reason for landslide? As I told you, landslide is predominantly man-made and it is a blended of man-made and natural. But we have to remember high intensity prolonged rainfall. If a Wayanad case, if you see, it is maybe because of high intensity and prolonged rainfall that created a problem, or maybe the modification of the natural slopes, because the people by interns in terms of occupying the space, they might modify it and they might have created a land modification of the natural slope. That might also be there, or blockage of a natural drainage. In this recently, when I visited 2 months before in Mumbai, we visited in Mumbai one of the area where the problem for landslide was because of the blockage of the natural drainage. The people without understanding it's a natural drainage, they spoiled it. In turn, that triggered the landslide in that area, because that was not that much, because it's completely, no, I say no, it's a man-made disaster. It was not a natural disaster, because it was because of rain and landslide, but it is not purely because of natural. It is purely because of man-made, because there was a blockage of the natural drainage. Sometimes clean water which flows in force from inside of the slope, that might also get. That's the reason I told you, when we go on the slope sides, we keep weep holes to protect the weep holes. And suppose coffee estates, they have a ponds and everything. As I told you, the flash floods. One of the participants was telling you, flash flood. Flash flood also results in the breakage of dam and temperature. And by default, our very famous geological formations, lineaments and structures, because you remember the magnitude of earthquake doesn't matter the faulty construction. We had an earthquake of 8.6 and 8.3 in Bhuj, you remember. But now when I visited, I witnessed no buildings, there is no problem with the buildings. Everything is perfectly all right. They have a good museum for Bhuj also, how to simulate a museum, it is also available. But we have to remember, it is purely on the aspects. So the landslide, it's a blended approach. That is both. It could be a man-made or it could be a natural. But the main aspect is high intensity rainfall. That is one which I have seen in Wayanad, or the modification of natural slope in terms of road cutting, or in terms of some construction activity, or in terms of any human activity, anthropogenic activity. That might also result in the landslides. Blockage of the natural drainage, which I told recently, we have had a case in the Mumbai. So where the natural slope has been blocked, and which created a problem. And clean water flow from inside to outside, water tanks or pond flash floods, and what else I told? Flash floods, and finally might have told you about the geological factors, which is very, very first and foremost factor is the geological factors. These are the potential factors which it creates. But when it creates a plan, we have to prepare a susceptible zone. As I told you, vulnerability. How vulnerable we are there. If I hold the knife, there is a possibility of a knife. If I have a water or a oil in my hand, it might slip. The probability, risk is probability. But how vulnerable is vulnerable is because how much I am facing it. Because suppose if I am doing it in the leg, it is falling means. Then what will happen? It creates a problem. It creates a problem which you have to remember. It creates a problem which you have to remember. So which you have to remember and which you have to take care of accordingly. That is a need of the hour, which we have to start. So that is a need of the hour. Then we have to identify the susceptible zones. The government of India marked the susceptible zone. That is only I have shown you the based on the landslide zonation map, hazard zonation map. Based on the hazard, how frequently are they going to, in Uttarakhand, how it's going to be there, for Mysore, how it is going to be there. For example, in Nilgiris, how it is going to be there, in Kodaikanal, how it is going to be there. So you have to prepare a susceptible zone. In the susceptible zone, you have to forecast what is the probability it is low or medium or risk high. So that you have to tell it is a low susceptible area, it's a medium susceptible area, it is a high susceptible area. It is depending upon your condition, you are going to tell accordingly the things are going to happen. So as I told you, vulnerability is nothing but how much exposure, how much resistance you have. And third is how resilience you are there. Because I told you it is a weak or strong, it is because of resilience. Because coming back to its original position, Chennai faced a disaster, but it has a resilient capacity is more. It came back to the original position easily. That is the how vulnerable it is there. So based on this, we will create a matrix because generally in a geotechnical, we will take a soil strength, we will do the shear strength studies because liquid limit test, if you see, it is like a slope cutting and we see, and we will give the vulnerability matrix because the government of India has given a wonderful thumb rule how the vulnerability matrix, because vulnerability matrix it's prepared based on the four major aspects. Four major aspects. I think next slide is there. I don't know. Next slide is there. Okay. So one is a built environment. How much it is a built environment? It is a building, or is it a physical infrastructure, or it is a social infrastructure. So what sort of the building environment it is there? What sort of a production system is there? It is agriculture area, or it is a livestock, or industry, or it is a vulnerable socio-economic condition. Are the women are there in that slope? Women, poverty, women condition, children condition, disability people, and elderly people. And vulnerable environment is how forest cover is there, because forest cover and mangrove forests are water detail. Because when we did some slight slope, we made a slope for water canal, but the slope was getting failure. I'm getting a simply example. So we want to make a lining of the canal, lining of the canal, because it's a slope failure. But if I want to line it, I want to do the entire search, it cost is very much involved. But they don't want to, they said, okay, can't you find any bio vegetation part? Because this is vegetation, if you plant it on the slopes, it might hold the soil, it might hold the soil by the roots. So the failure might chances might be less. As is only the resistance strength, we have to increase it. But one thing what we observed is how to improve the resistance strength, how to improve the resistance strength. So we prepared a slope. The slope, the water is going to come. So we told, okay, the slope descent is good, but still the problem came because the plants were not growing there. Plants were not growing there. Then only we came to the what water you are like, because they're relieving the chimney water from the power plant, thermal power plant. So it is a hot to lukewarm condition. It is hot to lukewarm condition. When it is hot to lukewarm condition, what happened? It created a trouble to the slope. So the plants are not growing. Then we suggested them to grow vetiver. Vetiver, they planted it. It is in the Chennai, the Manali. So when they planted a vetiver, what happened? The roots, vetiver will grow even in the lukewarm water condition. It was holding the soil. There was no lining aspect. It was holding the soil. At the same time, the slope was also getting protected. So we have let's focus on when you are making a vulnerability matrix, the four major aspects we divide. One, what is the built environment? what sort of a production strategy you have or a system you have. Second is vulnerable social economic condition, how social economic conditions are there, how sort of environment is there, because major cover everything. So based on that only we will be making, generally will be making arrangements. But when we have a strategy vulnerability matrix, low susceptible or high susceptible, we need to remember how we have to mitigate it. Mitigate it. So mitigate it. There are prevention strategy, structural measures, and monitor an early warning system. That only I said. Landslide early warning system, Lewis, the government of India has launched in 3 major cities, and they are monitoring states. They are monitoring accordingly. So Chennai, Tamil Nadu, we asked them to do it, so it was easy for this thing. Nilgiri citizen monitoring in early warning system, basically hazard donation, because as I told you, based on that, as a community outreach, we can prepare from KSR itself, can take the nearby slopes and they can prepare a hazard donation mapping or rainfall monitoring. Continuously rainfall monitoring is made, because once the rainfall is monitored, we can also estimate whether there is a chance for failure, whether any chance, uh, uh, not whether chance, whether they have any risk, so that the rainfall will exist to certain limit, it will create a trigger into the slope. That also we can see. That also we can see and we can look into. That's one approach which you have to see. That's an approach which you have to observe, which you have to look into itself. So the next aspect is structural measure. As I told, retaining walls and rock bolting, or prevention strategies we can work on, land use planning and afforestation, which you can work. So generally, the factors which we influence is, as I told you, this I came back. So erosion process, wind erosion or water erosion, weathering process, the freeze, thaw, shrink and swell, slope saturation, rainfall impact and seepage, slope instability, steep slopes and landslide dams, vegetation, joint growth, rock loosening and brittle. So these are the mechanism which we should remember. But as I told you, telemetric rain gauge stations have been kept in several locations. So where they monitor the rain gauge and they also monitor the weather conditions to protect whether the possibility of a triggering of the landfills and provide the early warning system. Early warning system, rainfall early warning system, it will be there. But we have to remember this community outreach is a major aspect which you have to do. So when you know the disaster, so after the 2005 Act, Disaster Management Act, we should remember, we need to prepare the prevention of disaster or any threat in any danger or threat from the disaster, which you have to remember. So we need to have a mitigation or reduction of risk, or we need to prepare how we have to do or prompt response. All those things which you have to create it. So which will help us to focus on how the planning is there. So then what are the geotechnical aspects which you are talking, sir? Exactly. So that might be the question, because in geotechnical aspects, what we are going to focus is nothing but, so in the preparedness strategies, how we can do it, because either you can have a multi-hazard conceptualization or a landfill remediation practice, or how we can do a knowledge networking or capacity building and training, or how we can awareness, because awareness is also important, because that is very, very important. So it will focus on geotechnical aspect is excavation. First we will excavate. We excavate, remove the soil from end of a slide. You remember I told you end, toe and this thing in the map previously. I told you end. So generally what we'll do when we make a removal of end of a soil from the end of the slide, then reducing the height of the slope. We'll reduce the height of the slope so that it will have a different effect. It will have a different effect and we have to operate. So with the stability, it's from the end and slope of the toe, and accordingly we will be operating it. So backfilling with a lightweight material, because end we have removed it, but we can backfill with a lightweight material. For example, in Tirupati, if you go, they've removed it and they put a stone gauges in the iron mesh box, cabions, which will give a more important aspect to preserve the customary things. So you have to remember the backfilling material, because we are removing from material from the end, we are removing the metal from the end, then we will be backfilling with a lightweighted metal, which will not cause trigger. So sometimes, as I told you, these days reinforcements are coming not only from the steel, but plastic mesh reinforcement also comes, because HDP sheets, two metal, like that they have a thick plastic sheets are also available. Plastic mesh, which gives the reinforcement, or they are going for a rock fill buttress. rockfill buttress. Maybe I can show you some pictures, but I didn't have the pictures right now. But we did some studies where we did the rock filled and it acts as a buttress because it like the Kodaikanal or somewhere we have taken pictures for rock filled buttress. Okay. Okay, maybe I will show you. And the streaming channel linings, because sometimes the channel linings which are there, which you have to make it, and drainage techniques and drain pipes, everything has to be maintained and reinforced earth walls. So nowadays, very powerful technique is gabion walls, sir, because previously I told plastic wire mesh reinforcement is also working. And at the same time, similarly, we have successful stories, the gabion walls. Gabion walls is where the along the highways, you might have seen even in Surat when I was traveling from Rajkot to Bhuj when I was traveling. I have seen the completely there's a cut, the vertical cut they made it, but still they had a protective measures so that the sudden fall should not be a vulnerable, make a risk to the fellow parties, fellow travelers, gabion walls. But sometimes, as I told you, very best method is vegetation. Vegetation. It will protect the slopes, but we have to monitor this vegetation during the rain guard season because where the vegetation is predominantly kept for the prevention of a slope as a mitigation strategy, there the rainfall monitoring is mandatory because rainfall monitoring will give a clarity of idea. So we have to give because without rainfall monitoring, it's not going to because joint growth and influencing steep slope, okay, and weak strength, how it affects everything. But type of slope and mulching periodically, we have to mulch it so that it helps us to work on it. So there are various techniques, safe catching techniques, excavation of rocks. All those techniques are available predominantly to protect the slopes and also to prevent the landslide. So these aspects has to be taken into consideration in your landslide preparedness plan. Because for every government, every state now asked to prepare and submit a landslide mitigation plan or a preparedness plan because that should not create a threat to the people because when it comes and how we have to do so first and foremost debris flow is going to create a big problem and which you have to operate accordingly and accordingly we have to so there are roles and responsibility of each and every people are there because now the general I am telling the education institution is not only to provide education but also to provide a knowledge or community outreach that is very very important. Disaster management, if you see, it is a community outreach plays an important role. Community outreach plays a major role in solving the disaster. So you might have learned about earthquake or floods everything. In landslides the community reach plays an important role in preparing the people because only one area it will get affected, rest of the area it will be safe because earthquake the entire area would have got damaged, only from outsiders they can come. In landslide prone area, only the slope prone area will be affected. The rest of the plain area people will be safer, which they can come as a helping industry. So that is a landslide is one of the unique disaster among all the disasters because it is a blend of man-made, blend of this thing, natural, and where the possibility entire area may not affect, but where the probability of risk vulnerability could be saved by coming from the quick because the state agencies plays an important role, the state disaster management agency and national disaster management agency also plays a role. Each one their functions and roles have been defined appropriately so that which will give a better insight to the people and it gives a better thought process to the people. That is very very important because that's the way the system works and that's the way the things could be made. So because as I told you, so where the construction, how the soil erosion could be made, how the groundwater levels are checked by the proper piezometer, by installing the proper piezometer, and I can check whether the groundwater is periodically increasing, and checking for the foundation of the building failures because whether the building foundation has been because in slope we will not focus on proper. We are not going for a deep foundation. We are going for only for a shallow foundation. At what depth it has been kept, whether the depth where it has been kept is it a safer zone or it is not creating any load to the structure. That way, we have to be very careful because that's otherwise it will create a problem. That it will create a problem and it will create, and then there is a little bit in the tough bit when it comes with the disaster mitigation. We have to remember about the two major aspects. it's a traditional material or it is a modern material or we call or sustainable material. Because traditional over how it is suitable, because sometimes some slopes could be preserved or protected by roots itself, by natural plantation itself. So these are the aspects which we have to take into consideration, because generally we will collect this soiling, we have to do the shear strength parameters of the soil, calculate the shear strength parameters through laboratory test or through the field test. You can calculate, and based on the shear strength values, we have to design the slope protection measures, slope protection measures. These aspects falls into the geotechnical aspects, making a soil investigation, preparing a draft mitigation plan. One one exclusive chapters on what how the geological factors are there and what are the aspects of geotechnical things need to be taken into consideration to protect it, because then it serves a purpose. So this is what which I wish to cover today, and if you have any doubts or any questions, because there is several culverts, because the culverts, if you see, I have seen arch culvert, slab culvert, pipe culvert. There are, because when you cut it, how the water has to go for, because accumulation of water, the water pressure only, it is going to trigger them and it is going to create a failure of the slope. So that how we have to ease the pressure, how we have to bring out the pressure, that plays an important role, and that makes an important aspect which you have to look into it, sir. Because the end which, because displaced material from the main scrap, how it falls, that is a very important aspect which we should know, sir. Okay. So these are the aspects which I wish to cover in today's session. And if you have any doubts or further comments or unanswered issues or unresolved issues, you can ask me, because next 5 minutes it is open for question and answer. Because the major sum up which I will once again do it, the disaster, you should remember hazard, risk, vulnerability, and disaster. Once it's hazard, when you prepare a plan for landslide hazard, landslide is a terminology which you have to remember. It falls the blended aspect of natural as well as man-made. In natural or man-made, we have to remember what triggers the landslide, because I've told listed in 7 parameters, maybe a 7 listed, where how it creates a failure of the slope. Maybe the water pressure which creates, or the structure, superstructure, what sometimes geological factors also might trigger. In case of Wayanad, it is basically rain, water, and a sudden rain and like a cloud burst. But as one professor was mentioning, cloud burst and water was not allowed to seep, but the slope terrain was not also made there, because the culverts and water slope drainage was not properly made, which created a struggle and mud slope failure has started. That is a major problem which we faced, and which you should remember the types of landslides, which you should remember the flows. Generally, we group the flows into 5 major category, and the lateral spreads also creates a trouble. But lateral spread, the disaster will not be that much, because it's a relatively lesser domain, because whichever anything more than 30% degree, which you have to take into consideration. And then we have covered about the mitigation strategy. The mitigation strategies, it depends upon the type what you focus. And before that, in the field testing, there are early warning system. Lewis has been made by the government of India, which has been installed already. The early warning system basically tries to measure the rainfall pressure accumulation in terms of piezometric measurement. They keep how much pressure it is there, how much water pressure is there, how much they are triggering those aspects. That is the thing which they are taking into account. So if you have any questions or any this thing, you can ask me. Thank you very much. Let's get connected with the with us each other. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Professor, very good evening, Professor.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
So this is Venkatesan from Marialur.
சொல்லுங்க வெங்கடேசன் சார், எப்படி இருக்கீங்க? எல்லாம்
fine sir, how are you?
Fine sir, fine sir. எல்லாம் இப்ப அட்டெண்ட் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கீங்க ப்ரோக்ராம் அட்டல்?
Yeah, yes sir.
So it's very important to attend the training program, not only to coordinate the training program and attend the training program at various intervals of attend. ஒரு ஸ்ட்ரெச்சா நம்ம ஒண்ணா கல்பா சாப்பிட கூடாதுன்றாங்கல்ல அண்ணா ஸ்டே. என்ன வெங்கடேசன் சார்?
It is not happening sir.
கரெக்ட். அது நான் பண்ண அது நடக்கல, நான் பார்த்துட்டு இருந்தாங்க அந்த கமிட்டில. பட் த ரீசன் வை ஐம் டெல்லிங் தட்ஸ் ரீசன் ஐம் டெல்லிங். ஒரே கல்பா சாப்பிட முடியாது, 54 நாளும் சாப்பிட முடியாது. ஒன் வீக்கா டயபெட்டிக் பேஷண்ட் நீங்க ஒன் வீக்கா மீட் அவுட் பண்ணணும். தட் இஸ் வாட் வெங்கடேஷ் சார். குட், வெரி குட், வெரி குட். எஸ்
Thank you, sir. I have one doubt, a clarification I need.
சொல்லுங்க. Yes, sir.
Landslide occurred in Wayanad.
Yes, sir.
So, what is the possibility of reoccurrence of the landslide which was happened earlier? Can it be revamped at that places?
Rebuilt with okay. இப்போ rebuild பண்ணிட்டு அங்க மறுபடியும் what is the probability chances to reoccur made? Because if you see the Wayanad landfill, if you see the complete report, they have categorically mentioned the heavy rainfall, like Chennai, a sudden cloud burst and heavy rainfall, that is a major factor which they are mentioning. And the drainage was not alert because of the which we have seen in the Mumbai. So the natural drainage path have been not affected, but it has been some changes because some engineers which they may not be knowing. If, for example, I will tell you very classical case study. If the platform we keep a small stone or tiles போடுறாங்க for a AICT visit. When we come, we see for the physically challenged people where they can the tiles will have a protrusion. You remember that bar போட்டிருப்பாங்க. You can just see in Anna University. From estate office, when you go to the HOD office of civil engineering, the industrial engineering department, that platform they might have put the this thing, that the tiles, very nicely they placed it. Suddenly one place, what the one person who was did a contract, I know was, because obviously estate officer is civil engineer, but someone who have monitor also civil engineer, ஒரு இடத்துல என்ன பண்ணிருப்பாங்க, ஒரு drainage cover போடுறதுக்காக அந்த tiles break பண்ணிருப்பாங்க. They kept the drainage cover on it. Okay. So this is what they did in Mumbai also. Natural drainage path, without understanding, the engineers from the government agency, they constructed something and they created a collapse in that area. When we went for inspection, we observed. The same manner, the natural drainages has been affected by some engineered people without having the without executing the duty consciously. That is that. இப்போ இந்த ரோடு போட்டு இந்த பிளாட்ஃபார்ம் மேல போட்டவங்க நீங்க யார் வேணாலும் போங்க. Why I'm telling Anna example, everyone is will go to CEG one point of from BCB, that is now what they call it as a ACO office. ACO office to that main road, the platforms, if you see the stones, I have taken a photograph and I have sent to civil engineering department also. How execution might create naturally for a path, or if a physically challenged person, it goes to the platform, he goes, follows it, he goes very safely. But in this trigger in the cover, unfortunately, it creates a confusion to him. It might get idena landslide against. So the first part is it's a natural, it's a sudden outbreak, and there was no drainage problem that created a problem. How to rebuild it? Suppose if you're rebuilding on the same area, how it happens? That is the reason now the government of India made a mandate. Each state has to prepare the not only landslide, the disaster management plan they have to prepare, mitigation management plan they have to. In the mitigation and management plan, they have to create a susceptibility mapping, hazard donation, low, medium, and high. So for that, I told you, vulnerability for landslide, we take 4 parameters into consideration. Or built environment, or vulnerability of the natural slope, 4 parameters. Each, it is very clearly. For example, earthquake, Professor Ganapati on a PhD thesis. So if you observe, this vulnerability ranking system will help you to make a hazard donation mapping. GIS la pandringa. So once you make the hazard donation, the susceptibility mapping will give whether they are low susceptible, medium susceptible, high susceptible. When you are low susceptible, without affecting the natural cause, we can rebuild it, but which has to be in terms of a guidelines, the state government has to declare it, because the state disaster management authority has more control in terms of delineating and protecting the area. Only when the disaster occurs, the central community comes into the picture for safeguarding. It is a affect ஆன போதுக்கு அப்புறம் தான் வராங்க, but previously this has to take into consideration. இதுதான் கதை மெடிடேஷன். So you have to prepare the mapping. But this the Wayanad is basically because of sudden heavy rainfall and natural drainage path has got affected due to man-made and சொல்லலாம், இல்லைன்னா engineer who didn't execute the work consciously. That is also one of the issue.
Recently, I came to know that if they are rebuilding the infrastructure, they are thinking that the terrain is a flat terrain. but already landslide devastation has been happened. But without considering the stability of the soil at that place, again they are rebuilding the infrastructure at the same place. So that's what I am asking, that what could be the possibility of the reoccurrence of the landslide over the places?
If they're constructing it based on that, then it's going to be a greater problem, sir, because it is a slope. It is a slope. We have to remember, because approximately they're doing more than 10 lakh or 8 lakh square feet of land has moved away from the hill. That was the statement. More than 8 lakh or 7 to 8 lakh. That was the thing which they told. I don't know the exact figure. 7 to 8 lakh square feet of land has moved down the hill. That created a big issue. They were telling it. But I didn't look into that exact rebuilding aspect, sir. But but there are several rebuilding Kerala. They have one problem, one aspect which I want to cover during the validatory session. The Kerala government made a community outreach program. For example, I went to CET recently, College of Engineering Trivandrum, for one purpose event. So there I have seen the students, volunteers of technical background, PG students, they went and helped rebuilding of those region, disaster affected region, not by physical strength, by their mental strength. How the GIS mapping could be done, how the road area could be made, how the soil strength could be done. This has been done by CET Trivandrum. They did the work because they got the letter also from, because in Kottayam also they did Kottayam, one place where there also the colleges, because rebuilding Kerala, these people have went and they affected not by physical health. Physical help பண்ற attitude good, but after the disaster they went and supported that region in the technical aspects, technically how they have to rebuild that place. That was the focus, sir.
So after the technical consideration only, they have to be rebuilt.
Yes. Because the government of Kerala is very clear. God's own country, they are very particular in preserving and protecting the nature. அவங்க waste generationக்கு fund tree cut பண்றதுக்கு fine. They are relatively very strong when compared to other neighboring states. Only thing they create a problem is they didn't follow the Basel Convention. Basel Convention was the transboundary movement of waste, but they are using it from transboundary movement into state. Basel Convention transboundary movement of waste avoid பண்றதுக்கு தான், பட் அவங்க வந்து அதை ஃபாலோ பண்ணல, but rest they are following it. That is what
they are following the stringent rules.
They are following the stringent rules, but they are not following the transboundary movement of waste ஃபாலோ பண்றதுல. மேபி சிங்கம் 3 படத்தை பார்த்திருப்பாங்கன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். அதனாலதான் அவர் பிரான்ஸ்ல இருந்து கூப்பிட்டு வரும்போது ஏன் நம்ம ஊர்ல இருந்து போக கூடாதுன்னு நினைச்சிட்டாங்கன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். சிங்கம் 3ல தானே கதை.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Venkatesh.
Dear participants, do you have any more queries? Dear faculty members, do you have any more questions?
Hello. Yeah, sir, regarding the exam time, sir, Mr. Ramesh, can you please confirm what is the exam time?
Sir,
இப்ப இந்த lecture முடிஞ்ச உடனே exam time starts, sir. After finishing my lecture, once I exit, the exam time starts now. The clock will tick. Maybe I will make a move so that Ramesh sir will conduct the exam. Any certification without assessment is not a proper. No, that is the reason.
Sir, is audible, sir?
Yes, sir, Ramesh sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, the test is open for 8 o'clock, sir. After the validity function is over,
okay,
they will start the test, sir.
Okay.
So all the participants, I request to attend the quiz at 8 o'clock today. So there is a postponement for 1.5 hours. After that validity function, you will start your test.
Okay, now immediately we are going to have validity, or break is there?
No, sir. After validity function, sir.
Okay.
So the participants are requested to ask the questions. Sir is waiting. Sir, Janardhan sir,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
we lined up the session, sir. Then
Okay,
he will
thank
again
you,
join at 7:30, sir. For validity
Okay.
function, he will give a validity address, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Are requested to join.
Dear participants, hope I am audible to you. Dear participants,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
stay back in the line. I think the feedback has been enabled. You can fill up the feedback in Atal portal. Feedback is enabled. You can fill up the feedback in Atal portal. By 7:30 to 8, we will be having a validatory function. All are requested to join for that validatory function. From 8 p.m., the test will be enabled. The test link will be enabled from 8 p.m.
Sir, Bari sir.
Sir?
சார் இப்போ ஃபீட்பேக்குக்கும் டெஸ்ட்டுக்கும் வந்து எவ்வளோ டைம் இருக்கு?
எஸ் சார், இருக்கு சார், இருக்கு சார்.
இல்ல இப்போ ஃபீட்பேக் வந்து இப்போ நாளைக்கு வரைக்கும் டைம் கொடுத்துருக்கீங்களா இல்ல
டெஸ்ட்டுக்கு வந்துட்டு நாளைக்கு வரைக்கும் டைம் இருக்கு சார். பட் பாத்தீங்கன்னா டெஸ்ட் பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒன்ஸ் எனேபிள்டுனா அது 45 மினிட்ஸ் டெஸ்ட் முடிகிற மாதிரி இருக்கும் சார்.
ஓகே, தட்ஸ் நாட் அ மேட்டர்.
இப்போ நீங்க வந்துட்டு டெஸ்ட் வந்துட்டு ஆரம்பிச்சிட்டீங்கன்னா 45 மினிட்ஸ்ல க்ளோஸ் ஆயிரும். நாளைக்கு வரைக்கும் டைம் இருக்கு. இன்னைக்கு 8 PM டு நாளைக்கு 8 PM வரைக்கும் உங்களுக்கு டைம் இருக்கு. ஃபீட்பேக் நீங்க போட்டீங்கன்னா தான் டெஸ்ட் போட முடியும்.
Okay, once after completing the feedback, then only test can be
Yes,
conducted.
sir. Once after, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Once we after completing the feedback, test will be enabled.
So is it possible to attend by tomorrow morning? Because I am attending through mobile.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can attend by tomorrow morning, sir. Test since from today 8 PM to tomorrow 8 PM, the test will be open, sir.
So 24 hours it is?
Yes, sir. 24 hours.
Okay, both feedback.
Yes, sir. Feedback also will be open up to by tomorrow.
After completing the feedback, so we have
after completing the feedback, you can attend the test, sir.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Or otherwise, you will attend test and after for feedback.
Sir, when the test starts, sir?
By 8 PM.
8 PM, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, sir.
It is 7:30 or 8?
By 8 PM, the test will be start.
Now, she is asking about the validity, I think.
Sir, validatory went to 7:30 to 8. Validatory timing is by 7:30 to 8 PM. And after validity, your test link will be enabled up to tomorrow 8 PM. Once if you started the test, it will be completing within 45 minutes. It will be closed within 45 minutes.
ஒரு செஷன் வந்து குவிட் பண்ணிட்டு வெளியில போயிட்டு திரும்ப வந்து ஜாயின் பண்ணலாமா அப்படின்னு கேக்குறேன்.
பண்ணலாம் சார். பண்ணலாம் சார். நீங்க இப்போ வேலிடிட்டி தான் சார் கேக்குறீங்க.
ஆமா சார்.
சார் டெஃபினெட்லி you can quit.
Okay, thank you.
ஆமா சார். இப்போ நீங்க quit பண்ணிக்கலாம். Faculties, if you want to make a quit also, you can quit now. But again, you join by 7:30 PM for validatory.
So ask them to join by 7:25, so before 7:25.
Okay, sir.
7:30.
Faculty, you please join by 7:20, 10 minutes earlier for that validatory.
Before 10 minutes.
Yeah. 7:20, all faculty are requested to join by 7:20 PM for validatory. Feedback link will be is enabled. You can post your feedback in Atal portal.
Good evening, sir. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir, while submitting the feedback, It
Yes,
is
sir.
asking about the workshop assessment. That
Sir,
is the
assessment will be enabled by 8 p.m. sir today.
so if we have to first get the assignment done and then after to
Yes, sir.
fill the feedback.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
You complete
Okay,
the
sir.
assignment. That is the test through Atal portal. You complete your test. It has been enabled from 8 p.m.
Then
today. After that, you complete
Okay.
the feedback in the Atal portal itself.
Okay.
If attendance,
Thank you, sir.
and test marks has been into the marks, you can get these certificates.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.